auto sequence start in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Well, hello there. Welcome, my fellow conveyors of currency, to another installment of Canned Conversation. My name is Andrew, and with me, as always, my good friend Steven.
Hola.
Hola.
It's almost Cinco de Mayo.
Cinco
right?
de Mayo in our world.
Yeah.
Close to it.
Yeah.
So we're going to be celebrating that a little bit today with our selection of can. Tell me, my friend, have you ever been electrocuted?
I have done some poor electrical work and been shocked before, so
All right.
I'm going to go with yeah.
So you're in that club.
Yeah.
Well, I'm a new member of that club.
No. Are you really?
Yes, reset the clock, 0 days until
0 days
not
to the
quite
last.
zero since the last electrocution. But
man.
yes, I
What'd you lick? What outlet?
so I was changing switches and there was 2 switches and I wanted to change the one. So I went over and I turned off the breaker.
Yeah.
You know, where you try to find it until the light
Yeah,
goes
you
out.
flick every breaker until,
Yeah, and the light went out and I'm like, bam, got it. Get into that switch and realized after I touched the other switch that it was live.
It's on a different
because
breaker.
it was on a different breaker. That was the first time I had had that scenario happen. And and it's one of those where I was like immediately.
It just bit you though, right? Like it didn't like you weren't sitting there going,
No,
"Whoa,"
right.
and somebody had to come with a 2x4 and hit you. Like
Had that happened, my own weight would have pulled me down off of it because I wasn't
it's not one of those ones where you like electrocute yourself, pass out and lean into it, so you just keep doing it. It was
my
just,
tongue fell right onto the
It just-
live wire.
So this was
the hot
just
one.
it bit you real quick, and you go, "Holy crap, that wasn't pleasant."
Yes.
That's real bad.
And things were tingling.
Yeah.
Or I'm like, I wonder how long that's going to last. Like as long as the 9 volt on my tongue
Yeah, no.
or a little longer.
It scares you a little bit, right? I mean, like you're like, oh,
where you're like, am I okay? Am I okay? Like 5 minutes and it was pretty much gone. I'm like, I'm good. But I'd gone a long time. I didn't really want to feel how that felt. I know a lot of electricians, if they were to be listening, they would laugh at me and go, "Oh yeah, we do that all the time."
Yeah.
I mean, I knew an electrician that used to say, "Oh yeah, I would change out switches and outlets hot."
yeah,
And I'm like, "Oh well, that's just a waste of time with those breakers. That takes too long."
it does.
Yeah.
I'm not an electrician, but that's how I do it too. I'm like, it's taking too long. I'll get a little extra. My brain will get a couple extra firing, synapses, and I'll be good to go.
Yes. It actually did give me more energy throughout the day.
I bet. That's awesome.
All right. Well, it is early May, so we have Star Wars Day that's in celebration for those
May the 4th.
like the May the 4th, and obviously then Cinco de Mayo. So we'll interlace a little bit of that throughout the show, but the show's not going to be
Sweet.
specific to any
anything?
of those.
Okay.
No, we're going to talk about money today. But as is our sacred pastime, one of us brings a new, unique, or rare beverage to try. And while we put our liver's functionality to the test, we will do our very best to give your brain some food to chew on. As I mentioned, today is going to be about your relationship with money.
Cool.
And later in the show, we'll review and rate the canned beverage and let you know if you should try it while taking in all of the coverage and commentary, as well as all the pomp and circumstance surrounding the royal coronation, or none of that, since it's all a bit silly and meaningless.
Agree.
If you're into the royals, enjoy. That's not my alley, but I'm sure they put on quite the spectacle.
Seems like a lot. Speaking of money, sees like a lot of money spent
Yes.
on getting them to put a crown on.
Yes. So let's get into this can because I'm excited and I would like to enjoy its contents.
Great.
All right, so let's do this.
Someday, Abu, things are gonna change. We'll be rich, live in a palace, and never have any problems at all.
Oh yeah. This music bed is called Energetic Hip Hop.
I love it.
It's again the electricity theme.
That's fun.
So did you put your thinking cap on while that line was playing as to what movie that is?
So that's Aladdin.
Very good. And did you figure it out by him saying a boo, or did you just happen to know that
Just the
one?
voice.
Okay.
I've watched that movie 100,000 times probably at some point. So
Yeah.
that's
All right. Well, that was Aladdin, and I think it's a good kind of kickoff as we'll get into the topic here. With one day I'll be rich and all my problems will go away. Is that how we think about money?
Yeah, you should do more Disney movies. I can really crush Disney movies, I think. All right,
What'd you bring us?
So I brought us Dia de Muertos, which is actually a 6 Mile Bridge. It's a St. Louis beer. It's a Mexican-styled lager. And I probably pronounced it wrong because I can't make it sound like.
Dia de Muertos.
Yeah, but you have to roll some tongues in
Yeah.
there, like somewhere.
And Muertos. I think it's Muertos.
It is Muertos. Dias de Muertos, whatever that is.
Is that Day of the Dead?
Yeah, yes. And it's a black can. It's got the cool.
Day of the Dead skeleton on it.
Yep. It's got sugar skulls on it. I don't know. It's just a cool looking can. It's all black with silver lettering. And I love the top of it, which just says insert fresh lime. And there's a bunch of arrows pointing to where you open it, which is awesome. So it's a big can too. It's a pint.
And we do not have a fresh line to insert where it is saying.
I should have brought a fresh lime to insert. Sorry. It is vegan friendly as well.
This is brewed by the Sharing Brewing Company and located in Maryland Heights, Mexico. No, that's Missouri. I thought that might be Mexico. No. But yeah.
5.5% alcohol by volume and 1 pint Florida ounces. Whatever that is in Florida ounces. 16, I think, right?
What is it in Mexican ounces?
Yes, it's pesos.
Yes.
It is 100 million pesos.
It says on the side, we've brewed this crisp Mexican-style lager with celebration of lime in mind, perfect on its own, or drop a fresh lime wedge straight into the can. Enjoy chilled with good company. It is chilled, and I do have good company, so
perfect.
I believe we're going to enjoy this.
We're good.
Yes.
So I thought it was a good can for this episode. So
yeah. All right. Fitting. So let's talk about money. We've kind of talked about various aspects of money in different episodes, but I recently watched a documentary that was on the Netflix.
Okay.
And it's called How to Get Rich. Now, it's a bit of a clickbait title, which, I understand in this world when you're streaming. Everybody has streaming services now, and they're all competing for your money. That they had to put that, but I would have, if I would have titled it to what I think the major theme was, it was how to live a rich life, or are you living your rich life?
Monetarily.
Yeah. Well, yes, more a focus on money, but it goes beyond that. It's like how your relationship with money evolves or is, and how it can evolve.
Okay, just for the record, I'm a late adopter of Netflix.
Right.
As in like 2023, when everybody else had it in 2018, 19, whenever they had it. Doesn't matter. We're way behind. And so you've been sending me documentaries or documentaries, either one, both, probably both.
Yes.
And I have been trying to vigorously catch up.
Yes.
And enjoying it because I love documentaries and or documentaries, either one. And they're both great on Netflix. So you've sent me this one, and I think you probably meant for me to watch it, but I didn't because it's on my watch list with 100,000 other documentaries.
It's when you get to it, but you're going to get a bit of a taste of it here.
Cool.
And watch it, or if it keeps being deprioritized for other stuff, then feel free to watch it later. Cool. But there's the host of it is Ramit Sethi. I believe he has a podcast, and that's where I think he started sort of this theme of his, because he definitely uses some words and phrases that he builds upon, and I'll use a couple of those and kind of tell you where they are. There's 8 episodes of this particular documentary. And so I just, I'm not going to get into what he necessarily does with all of these couples and or individuals that he works with.
He counsels people.
Yes, he and gives advice in terms of relationship with money. And I kind of keep saying relationship because I thought that was an interesting take, right?
Okay.
I feel like we mostly think in terms of money as this thing, right? That is an integral part of our lives. But I don't necessarily, at least for me, I didn't really go, I have a relationship with money, right? It's a very deep rooted psychology, and he even calls it the psychology of money. Everyone has a different psychology of money. Agreed. So sort of the first thing we're going to take a look at is what is our psychology of money, or what is our relationship with money? And then in the second part, or depending on, kind of where it is, where we'll rate the can, we'll talk about what it means to live a rich life, at least the way he talks about it. And are we maybe potentially living a rich life, or do we have ways to go, and what does that look like?
Okay.
So money. So we're not going to really get into the specifics of, I'll just use one of the examples on that show was, you'll hear about, budgeting, and if you're having a hard time with money, spend less, right? Save more.
Got it.
And so, stop going to Starbucks,
right,
and buying that $7 coffee, instead brew it at home. And I've never really been that. It was so cliche, and I think everyone uses that one, right? For whatever reason, coffee has a bad name for being overpriced.
Right.
I guess it's probably because everyone can sort of relate to going to a coffee shop and paying probably more.
A premium for
premium
better coffee.
That they could make at their house for substantially less. But that in terms of what we're talking about here, that actually sort of goes against this theory here of, if you really love going to get that cup of Starbucks, if it's Starbucks, or, if it's another premium coffee place, because there's a lot of them now, it feels like, then you don't have to just stop, right? Because then you're not necessarily happy, right? So you got to find a good way to get to a happy place.
Okay.
And so the first part of that is looking at your psychology of money. What is your relationship like with money? So, as I know, I took some notes on my own because I stepped away and I did a retreat, a silent retreat.
Did you? Did
to
you
really
some reflection and
analyze my own
internal
feelings?
Okay.
I really did a deep dive.
That seems like something you would do.
On my feelings about money.
Yeah.
And I was kind of curious as to what I would come up with if I started kind of writing things down of going.
You started a journal? That also doesn't sound like you.
Yes, it's a diary. Dear diary.
Dear money diary.
Right. Money and I met today.
Yes.
All right. So I'm just going to kind of get started on sort of what I think my money psychology is.
Okay.
And hopefully either relate or say what's different, because hopefully it's a little different. If you just go, yeah, that's mine, then it might be a little boring.
I have a really good feeling we are not on the same page here.
I think so too, but to a certain extent. But
okay.
But some of our upbringing, I think, will be somewhat similar.
Our fathers were very similar.
Yes. So from my earliest memory until I was 8, my mom raised me as a single mother. So I don't know if I've said that. I know I've sort of mentioned I'm quasi-adopted because I'm adopted by my stepfather, but it was just my mother and I for the first 8 years or so of my life, and we lived in a 0-room apartment. Right? The only door in the place was the bathroom door. Everything, it was just one big
giant
room
studio-ish type thing
that you made a slight turn to go down a gallery, a kitchen that was super tiny. So, and she had a retail job adventure. That's what she did, and that's how she kept us going. Right. So she made our life on that, so it was not exactly rich.
Because at the end of that is you had a sister. It's like that was
after she married.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Never mind.
So this was the early.
So this was real early.
Yes.
Okay.
So based on that, and our necessities were met, but otherwise we had to make do with what we had.
Yeah.
And sort of my first relationship, or what I wrote down lesson, my first lesson on money was that money is scarce and money is security. When you have some of it, there's some security. When you don't have it, there's not a lot of security there. And that frivolous spending is wasteful spending. Saving is protecting. What do you think about that? Just what's your thoughts on it?
So I think, I wasn't raised that way. However, we laugh, my sister and I laugh a lot. When my dad died, my mom had already passed away and my dad died. We kind of chuckle. We're like, we grew up thinking we were poor, it was just never the case. Just, but he had that same very, very frivolous, very, he never had fancy cars. Like he always had used beaters, right? Like he didn't think that way. Like he toiled over spending money on anything. And he researched it to make sure he's getting the very best deal for the amount of money he had to pay. And then, he's like, we bought our house in cash, right? So you're like, I didn't even think that, like, he's like, if you can't, and he told me one time that I was blown away by it. He goes, if you can't afford it in cash, you shouldn't buy it. Like,
that's an excellent point of what your psychology is. And do you think I think the point is, did you adopt that for yourself? Like that's your dad's speak.
Yeah. I don't think I did. And I don't think it's smart.
Okay.
So we'll get into why I don't think it's smart, but I was raised kind of that same way, but very differently because this resources weren't scarce. We just felt like it. It was
right.
Inappropriately felt like it. Like they were.
So here's where I caught up to you.
Okay.
In my childhood. So after 8, my mom married my then stepfather. He had a college education and a job at McDonnell Douglas. Out of college, working with computers as a database administrator, at least. That was what he was later on, and I'm assuming that's what he started as too. He was always very into that. So our standard of living definitely went up, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Two
it shot
incomes,
up.
One of them is significantly higher in an industry. Yeah,
and he helped my mom get on a path where she became. She had a job in computers. At her work, where she worked at American Red Cross, and she worked her way up. So out of venture, right, out of retail, nothing wrong with retail, but it's just going to be a limiting factor on how much money you can make. But she definitely improved her earning potential.
Yeah.
My dad had his earning potential, and yet I didn't really feel a change in the force.
Yeah.
So there's a thread for May 4th, right?
Yeah, there you go.
It's a tie-in.
Yeah.
I felt a change in our family dynamic, obviously, because now I had a stepfather, had a little bit more security, or what I felt was more of a secure home, I guess. But I didn't really feel this all of a sudden uptick, other than we did move out. We eventually moved out of the apartment and we moved into a different apartment that I had my own room. So, I mean, that was big.
With a door?
That was big. Yeah. But, he grew up in a family of 7 kids.
Oh, so
he was one of 7.
They were scrapping for
His
stuff.
dad was military World War II vet who then opened his own small business selling eyeglasses. He wasn't a doctor of optometry, but he was an eyeglass salesman.
Okay.
Feeding 7 kids and a wife. So I don't know that he would necessarily agree with this. So if you're listening, Dad, he's probably getting a kick out of how I'm
Your
breaking this
perception of it,
down
yeah.
as psychology speaking. But I mean, everything in their house was hand me down, right?
Yeah.
And it was, so I think that it's a trickle down of it was, my next lesson was basically money is to be saved for a rainy day, because when bad times happen, you still need to pay the bills.
Yep.
So it goes back to, again, money is scarce, money is security. Saving is what smart people do. Poor people spend money on a lot of stuff, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
I'm 100. Yes, I'm 100% there. I think my dad got it. Like, he was an investor. Like, he was very big on saying, and when I first got a job, I got married young, and had a decent job pretty young. And so he was like, you are going to invest. You are going to put money in your 401k. I am going to sit down and help you balance it. I'm going to do this. Like, he was very like, you will be putting money away. You need to be planning.
Right.
You have a child, you have a wife, you need to be planning for your future. So we had those conversations. What I think probably is late in life, but it was really early back then. Like, I was like 20, probably 22, maybe something like that. I want to have those conversations earlier. I should have been having those conversations earlier with my kids. I probably didn't, but those are the things you need to be thinking about.
Right.
But
So
saving's important.
So I will label this was saving is important, but one step further, interest is power in the hands of the beholder. So when you're saving money, be it investing, you're making interest on the investment, whether it be the yield on a savings account, savings bond, or if you're investing in stocks, it's the return that you can get. That in the hands of you as the investor means more money. You're putting your money to work for you. But the interest on loans, and so credit cards are evil, was sort of what the family discussion, just the discussion around the house, he never really sat me down and goes, boy, credit card companies are evil. Right. He may have said that, he may have actually, but I don't want to put words in his mouth completely. But he would say, do you know the interest rates on those things? They are straight stealing from you. They are criminals. I believe he called them criminals, at times. And it was so he was, all of these things that he would discuss would be, you be the one earning interest, not paying it. You be the house, not the gambler. Right. And even to this day, I'll go into a casino and I'll have enough that I'm willing to lose, but I hate it. And I'm because I would rather be the house. I know I'm going to lose. Yeah. There are no odds in my favor in this.
You're going into it with entertainment money, not I have to win money.
Right. But it's always about who controls the ability to make money on the money. Yeah. That's what he taught me. And I think that's what your dad was very much into. I mean, he was an investment club.
And credit cards were a necessity because sometimes you just have to have them. You travel, you do those kind of things. But for the most part, nothing should sit on a credit card. Right. I think that was always his message.
That's a loan to pay off lots of little things.
Immediately. Or it's not worth having it. Right? It'll build up on you. So he was a big into investing. You should put as much of your money away and let it work for you versus you working for it, which is what credit cards are. You're working for a credit card because to trying to pay something off versus your money just sits there and works for you if you invest it right. It just does things. You don't have to even know.
Exactly.
That's awesome. It just sits there and builds more money. That's perfect. Do that.
You want to double your money, put it away and don't look at it.
Right. And stop thinking about it. Don't literally let it do what it's supposed to do.
So would you say, because again, I feel like I sort of caught up to where you guys probably were, and that I always felt poor. Yeah. But not ultra poor. It's not I knew there were people way less fortunate than myself because I was able to go to a parochial school, and that cost money, and we always had food, and and a place to sleep. But I feel like I was conditioned not to really ask for stuff. If you're at the store, which is different than my kids, I feel, and maybe this is an ongoing parental. Parents always think that their kids always want everything, and maybe my parents thought the same because I'm sure I asked for stuff younger. But I feel like I got sort of conditioned to knowing what the response would be. It would be, "Can I have that?" And they would go, "Save your money," or put it on your Christmas list. Because really Christmas we got one or two things on our birthday. It was not a huge celebration for our birthday. We'd get, I got a soccer ball one year and, but Christmas was sort of the high point. We would get 3 or 4 things, under the tree for us. So it was either save your money. Then once or twice I saved my money. I bought something and it turned out to be a complete dud, right? Not what I expected. Right. The marketing sucked me in as a kid. Yep. I got it. Arm fell off an action hero. And I was
oh my God.
I saved up 3, 4,
this is 3, 4, 5
months.
months for this crap. Yeah. And it's trash.
Yeah.
So I think we were, again, looking back, it's amazing how ignorant you are about things, right? So looking back, we had a very middle classy, there was a bunch of rich kids in town. I get that. Mm-hmm. Those kids got new cars when they turned 16 and all that stuff. Great. And I'm not, nothing against that. It's just,
it's just different.
It is just different. But there was never an expectation that you were going to buy me a new car or Christmases weren't bad, but my dad was thrifty about stuff for big items, especially big items, right? He's you're not going to, new cars are a dumb investment. You just go buy a used car that somebody's kind of broken in and that's just better. So,
because what happens as soon as you drive a car off the lot?
It decreases and it depreciates in value.
Yes. Yeah. So the mantras. Yeah. I mean, you've heard those same things. That my dad would go, as soon as that car leaves the lot, it depreciates in value.
But
you lose money.
Yeah, I can't imagine. I mean, I can't remember back to a Christmas or a birthday where I go, I didn't ask for that, and I asked for something and I didn't get it. Like, I got most of what I wanted. Like, I would have at some point. I probably should have asked for more. Just kidding. That's but
I guess it was like, but it wasn't a regular occurrence for you to be like at the store and you go, hey, I want that, and then your mom or dad would put it in the cart.
Yeah,
and
no, we
go,
just didn't,
sure.
Yeah, every day wasn't a shopping spree for sure, or like you just didn't get whatever you wanted.
Or we're gonna go shopping. Let's stop by the toy store. You pick out a couple things.
Right.
That would in my youth would have been
Your
like
head would explode.
Right. Silver spoons to me, that's the life, right? That's the show.
That's a good reference,
right?
man.
Where I was like, that kid had a train in his living room. That's the life he's leading.
Yeah.
Right. You know, where his dad could come in and go, hey, we're going to go to the store and you pick out some stuff and bring it home. That just is not the life.
And so when we were growing up, that was what you go, that's what rich kids look like. You're like,
they have
a
train,
a mansion
that they can ride.
Right. They have trampolines inside. They have all this like, oh my God, that kid had so much stuff.
Yeah.
That was such a good show.
Yeah.
Anyway.
And I too, I had the kids that were I don't know if they were rich or not, but they had way more than I do. I remember the first house I went to and I said, you got a pool in your backyard? You know, that's not even one of those things that like you blow up or that you set up above ground. I mean, this was like an in-ground pool. I was like, oh my gosh.
That's the real thing. That's money.
Yeah.
That ain't cheap.
No.
Pools don't come cheap.
I'm like, can I hang out here often?
All the time?
Because you're right. You have the newest video games. And, and for me, for Christmas, it felt like, my parents were the same way. I feel like the big stuff, I always got 3 years after it was huge. Like I had to wait for a long time to get a Nintendo. Everyone had a Nintendo that I went and played. And then they one Christmas, they're like, and here's a new Nintendo. Are you super excited? I was like, oh my gosh. Yeah, I am. Because now I can play.
I own it.
Because now I can play it here. But it's been for a while.
Yeah, I've experienced every game already.
It's been out for a little bit.
Yeah. I think my dad was such a researcher on stuff. Like he was an engineer. Your dad's a DBA at heart, right? Like he's a data guy.
Right.
My dad was an engineer. He's also a data guy. He's a math guy. He's a science, like ceramic engineer stuff. So they did a lot of research. They like data at their disposal. So some of it was, for us at least, I think, some of it was he was just analyzing everything. Like, is this a good decision? Is this the right decision? Is this the right money? It seems like it's overinflated prices. I'm not going to buy that TV yet because I think it's going to come down. You know, Consumer Report says that should come down in 3 months. I'm going to wait. Right. Like he just like, oh my God, analyzed everything to death.
So that's funny because I feel like you're describing me now.
Yes, 100% I am.
Because I put on here with all of the things I've kind of mentioned where like it was save your money and then or save the UPCs off of 16 cereal boxes, cut them out, put them in an envelope, send them off, wait 8 to 16 weeks until they return it. And then that piece of crap that you ended up with. And you're like, okay, so my lessons that I garnered out of that and my relationship today with money is that I believe you get what you pay for.
Yep.
And I know you and I have had this conversation where that's like my mantra. I'm like, don't cheap out, man.
I've heard it a lot.
Yeah, don't cheap out. It's going to bust on you. You're going to buy 3 of the same thing. It's going to cost you more in the long run. And fully vet purchases. Don't buy blind. Like, don't just go pick up something or the shiny object, right? Ooh, piece of candy. So I will review, look at reviews,
yeah, you
do weird, like, you know, make sure, like, and then pull the trigger on probably something that's definitely not the cheapest. It's not the most expensive, but it's probably middle to a little higher than average because I know I want quality and I don't want to mess with it.
Yeah. This is where you and I deviate, right? I am willy-nilly at best. I'm a bright, shiny object guy.
Yes.
I'm sometimes the cheaper the better guy. Like I want this, but I don't really know what I'm doing with it. So I'm going to buy a cheap one because if I break it, I won't feel bad. And then I'm like, this thing doesn't really work the way I want it to. I'm like, I should have bought a better one. All the time. Like that is I just buy stuff. Like literally
So where do you think that comes from? You have that. Is it that you were like, well, I know what my life was like as a younger person. I don't want to live that way? Or where do you think that
I don't know.
came from?
Being adopted, I'm a weird nurture versus nature experiment probably at some point. I think I probably have inherited some genes that are a little bit more spontaneous, if I had to guess. not I had to guess, they are. I've got some spontaneous genes that just go, I don't have any genetic relation to my dad, but he was the data guy and math guy and thought everything through. I don't think like him. Like I learned lessons from him, and I can think in some terms that he did, but a lot of what he did never made sense to me. I'm just like, all right, that's what we're doing. So I think I have some weird genetics that go really counterintuitive to how I was raised. That I just like, I'm going to buy stuff. Like that's why I don't get to, I don't manage any of the money in my house because I'm not responsible with it.
Right. Well, I shouldn't say right. I'm saying right to, I know that in your situation, your wife does the majority of the legwork.
Amazon's like a horrible invention for me because I'm like, I want this, and I'm like,
buy now. One click buy.
Yeah, I'm gonna buy it. And so if it's big purchases, I do tell her about them, or like, right. We talk through stuff now because I know how spontaneous I am I'm like, I really want this, and this is why. So I hold off on stuff like that. And there's been a lot of things I'm better at holding off on, but
right on.
But I do not research stuff. I'm like, this seems to have good reviews. Great. Buy now.
The stars are pretty full of gold.
It's over 3.
Yeah.
Buy it.
What's funny is I'm not genetically related to my stepdad either.
Right.
And what I do know about my biological dad, he's not like my stepdad at all. And yet I really take after, monetarily speaking, and money and my relationship with money. I really take after.
He had a bigger impact on that piece of your life.
Yeah. Yeah, I really took those things into heart. When he told me credit card companies were evil, I was like, they're out to get me. So I'm going to use credit cards.
All you parents out there who are listening and you have little kids, if you have little kids, use words like evil because those are the things that stick.
It does, right?
Make it traumatic.
Fear.
I mean, like scar your children over it because you can drive good practices into them through fear, guilt, shame, and pain. That's all I'm saying. All right.
And another one of his, he really loved, if it seems too good to be true, it probably is. Yeah. And I really took that to heart where now my poor family, I'll go.
Doesn't get to have anything that looks
well, they'll come up and they'll
go,
man, look at this. This is amazing. I'm like, that's a scam. I can tell right off the bat. And they're like, I really, really think it's going to be okay. It's off this website. It's mostly a foreign nation to be unnamed. And it might take 5 weeks to get here. It's a good deal. And now this was a little while ago, I think, when some of those websites were a little bit more popular and they order them and they come over and they can fit a doll.
Right. And you're like, I got
piece of clothing.
I got this dress. And you're like, it's just a piece of fabric and it doesn't cover your arm.
Or it's just the wrong thing altogether. It's just whatever they wanted to send you.
Yeah. And you're never going to return it. There's no return. It came over on a container.
Right. Like how many stamps do I have to put to return this to wherever it came from?
And you bought it for $4. It takes $27 to return it.
Yeah.
Not worth it.
So so it's kind of interesting. So I guess in summary, so I kind of set out a couple of my big things, and I think we've kind of hit some of yours along the way, but I don't want to miss anything for you. But I would say my relationship with money is I still come from that of money is scarce, and so and it is secure. So like I want when money is available through earning power, let's say, and you get a raise, I'm like, okay, well, I don't want to just spend it frivolously. Like I plan things out, right?
You're a planner.
I'm a planner.
Yep.
And I use data.
I'm a frivolousler.
And I budget.
Yeah.
And I vet purchases and
I don't do that.
And I always am trying to look how to outmaneuver what I call, I guess, the man, but whoever, like in terms of interest, right? How to have the best possible interest rate on something I have to have a loan for. My house, I can't buy in cash. Hats off if your dad bought that house in pure cash.
Right? I'm like, what the hell is that?
That's awesome. But I have to have a mortgage. How do I make it so that my mortgage is the least amount of percentage APR, and then on the reverse, how do I maximize my returns on the money that I'm putting wherever I'm putting it?
So the funniest thing I have seen lately, and I'm going to throw this out and we'll see we've started to get hate mail or hate comments, which I love, or people that are angry with us. And I actually, I'm 100% digging it. So if you just think this is the stupidest crap you've ever heard, send it to, put a comment on wherever you listen to this and go, Steven, you are a moron. It's all good. But I saw a thing, and of course it's on Instagram Reels, so who really knows what that is? But so it talks about rich people leverage debt. Rich people don't put money in stocks; they leverage debt, and the reason is because your debt is not taxable. Income is taxable, capital gains tax, all that other stuff, all your stuff to get all that money out is taxable. Where your money comes from is having valuable assets and having as much debt as possible because that means that's money in your pocket. So if you have $100,000, it's better to put $20,000 down and buy 5 houses put $20,000 down on each one. And for $100,000 house, and you've got $500,000 in assets sitting there, all in loans. That is assets on your bank account. You've only spent $100,000 and all of that's, you can write all of that off. Right.
Well, it's just the interest.
Right. But it's all wrapped up. So when that goes up in 3 years or 5 years and you can sell them all for whatever that is and start flipping those into a higher investment account, you're rolling your loans over. Right. So you're still pulling out somebody else's money and using that to gain liquid assets. The whole thing was don't use. Like you should be using loans because
I also don't know that you can write off mortgage interest on a non-primary residence because they know that is for income. I'd have to look that one up.
Either way,
that'd be the hate mail you're talking about. Like somebody goes, your tax law, man.
I don't. All I know is that
research.
I go the opposite direction of that, and I feel bad when I hear that kind of stuff. I'm like, oh man, I should be leveraging debt more because you could go I don't have a lot of loans right now, so. I could go take out loans and go, I'm going to dump $20,000 on a property and then Airbnb that thing out and make it a passive income. And then in 2 or 3 years, I'm going to pull the equity out of that and put it on a bigger house. And like you start doing those kind of things where they're rolling it, it just takes work. And I don't freaking want to do it.
Right. And that's where we get into the next thing where we're going to talk about living a rich life because you might be like, hey, I don't want to do all that work.
Right.
But now if you pay off your house, like say you own your house outright, and you go, oh, I could get a mortgage and leverage my house right now would not be a good time to do that because the Fed has upped interest rates 10 times in a row. But when it was they're
on a roll.
When they were on that record low where you could get maybe 30-year fixed for like 3 or 2.5.
Yeah.
And then you take all that money and you put it into treasury or something that is a guaranteed almost like 5 or 6, whatever it is, or high yield, account, then you're making the difference.
Yep.
And that is in line with what I'm saying. You're the one that is holding the cards because the math works out for you. You are making the better interest and paying off the lower interest with the house money, which I get, right? So you're making money off house money.
I think
in theory.
What I think is
not in theory. If you have a guaranteed yield. Now, if you put in stocks, you could lose it.
Right. It's
right.
But what I think is interesting is I think when we talk about like, there's all kinds of ways to get around taxes, which I wish I was better at. Not going to lie to you. It pisses me. I freaking hate taxes. And the reason that there's rich people in the world who go, oh, they don't pay any taxes because they're smart. Don't be angry with them.
Or they can afford lawyers.
Be mad at yourself for not being smarter. The government's taking your money more and more, right? Like the more you make, the more they want to take from you. It drives me crazy, like insane.
Oh yeah, I have a bullet point when I get into the next thing.
Oh, we haven't gotten into the next thing yet?
I tell you how much, like...
We haven't even rated a beer.
I know. We're on a roll. I'll say the last thing that I'll say, and I think it goes with what you're saying, is if you borrow... just to borrow to buy things that don't have equity value, then that's a poor life, right? And I think, and it's always interesting to me when I go to a restaurant or I go out where there are a lot of people, and you can see these people that are all flashed up, right? Yep. They have these sweet shoes on, these super bling, lots of big jewelry, and I'm like, now jewelry can sort of maintain some value, I guess. I wouldn't put it up there with other equity.
You're saying real estate may be way more better
Right. I mean, a
asset than-
diamond ring is, you can resell it, but it's just a different ball game, right? But my point is it seems like the flashier I see, I always think those people probably don't necessarily have the most money, right? They have flash and they can spend a lot. And on that show that I watch, it's funny because they deep dive into these people's all their statements, and they show them on television. They're like, this is where all your money's going. And those people that have the flashiest life, they are spending so much money going out the door, and they are basically living paycheck to paycheck.
Yeah.
And they shouldn't be.
Yeah. They should be having money that's just piled into an investment account somewhere, and they just can't figure it out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because they're more wrapped up in shopping and showing off, having a best car, nice best suit, hair done, nails did, all that stuff.
I watched a little weird thing on like Jordan Peterson, and I know he's a controversial figure, but he basically said your lifestyle, it's $60,000. If you can't, like, so basically the $60,000 is the cutoff. You're as happy as you're going to be with money at $60,000, and you can be that same happy at $120,000 or $300,000, but $60,000 is where you can be content and live.
Yeah, I saw that when doing some of the research for this episode. I saw that, and then I saw a couple of other things that said, in theory, sort of, but no. The more that you make, your contentment level will still rise. Just it might not be linear.
Yeah,
but it's not like 60,000 and 500,000 a year
are the same.
And it depends on
what you think is happy.
Right.
I think there's
which we're going to get to after the beer.
All right. Well, good. Let's rate then. This is my can. I have to start, don't I?
Yeah.
Sweet. So, I'm not going to lie. Most of the time when we bring beers, we have not tried them. We bring them to the show. We try them live on. I actually tried this.
What?
I know.
Oh,
this is a letdown for you.
Oh man, all of our built-up equity. Just down
so
the
I'm
drain.
trying to be honest about
new, unique, or rare.
Yeah, sorry, but I'm going to tie this in. We went to a friend's birthday party, and her husband was a guest on our show, Keith. And so this was six. We went to this brewery, and we drank this beer, and it's so good, especially with a lime in it. So I'm just saying, I missed the lime in this version.
Yes.
I really wish I would have brought a fresh lime. I love this beer though. I'm a big fan. It's a 4 for me because I already knew it was a 4 when I brought it. And that seems like cheating, and I apologize. But I brought Bud Light last time, and I already knew what that tasted like too. So I'm kind of on a roll of cheating here. Sorry, but I'm gonna go with a 4. I like the taste of it. I like that. It's a pretty bold flavor. There's a bolder flavor to it, but it's really good. It's a good beer for me.
Yeah. I don't know that I've had a specifically. Maybe I don't really typically try Mexican lagers, right? Like I feel like Dos Equis is kind of one that would probably fit that bill. Is Modelo
I don't know.
Mexican or is it Spanish?
I don't know, but I like it.
Right on. And I don't consider Corona.
No, that's
right. But like, so there's very few.
Yeah.
This is great. Yeah, this is really good. It has a special, and maybe it's unique to Mexican because I haven't had a lot of them. I don't know enough to say, like, my palate isn't saying, oh, this is a crossover between a Mexican lager and it's hints of this other thing. So in my mind right now, what I'm tasting, this must be Mexican lager. And I just don't have enough of it to go, man, I'm really missing out on some of these, but like, this is really good.
Yeah.
It has good flavor.
It does.
It's full flavored. It doesn't feel real light or watered down, but it doesn't feel filling. Like, I'm not drinking it and going, oh man, this is real heavy.
And you know how like an IPA finishes on your tongue funny? This finishes on your tongue not funny. Like,
this finishes
the
great.
The flavor finishes on your tongue right.
Yeah.
And with the lime, it's even better.
It's got a good mellow finish.
Yeah.
That isn't weighty. Is the best I can say. Is just because there's sort of the light beers that you can drink a lot of. This, I feel like I could steadily drink this in a whole evening and not have to go to a lighter thing going, oh man, this I'm full and bloated.
I think I steadily drank this in an entire evening.
Yeah. I'm almost done with this can.
I am too. Yeah.
And it's a big one.
So where are you at with it?
4.
Nice. So I brought a 4. I'm happy with that. I was hoping you would like it. Yeah. Good.
Everybody's happy. Studio audience is happy.
Nice. My wife also, she's like, I'm bringing this to the podcast, and she's like, can you leave one of these home? Because I
Nice.
want it. So yeah, we drank this for a while, and she was digging it too. So
Great.
Cool.
All right.
Nice job. 6 Mile Bridge. Way to work it out.
So let's we
transitioning?
it's sort of we've talked a lot about sort of the psychology of money, kind of the way we think of it.
Okay.
We didn't really have a dissenting opinion. It probably would be good to if we had somebody that was like, savings for schmucks, you only live once, if you spend it, if you got it, maybe just to see where they came from, like what drove that. Because I feel like you and I were fairly similar in some of the things that we think, but it's kind of interesting to get other people's takes, which is fun on that show too, because they do have people that are experiencing real life, right?
Yeah.
That just look at it through their own set of lenses. And so him being who he is, he has to sort of, be able to navigate all those different types of psychology. So, I hope our listeners, it's food for thought, and you've maybe thought about what's your own sort of relationship with money? But what it dovetails into is sort of, okay, well, if you know what you think about money, what is the goal here, right? Like in terms of, money obviously is a huge driver for lifestyle, what you can, what you can't do, sort of your life. It's a major component of your life. So in terms of happiness, hit the point that the person made on the show here was, how do you make your relationship like you have with people good? What does your rich life look like? What would you be happy with if, down the road or now, like what is your now rich life and are you living it? And then future self, what does your rich life look like future? And do you think you can get there? So that's kind of my question is what is your current rich life look like? And it's not like how many dollars do I have in the bank necessarily? I mean, that might be a goal of yours. Nobody on that show said my goal is to have $2 million or my goal is to have 500, whatever that is for them,
Right.
It was more so of things that they wanted to use their money to enhance in their life or not let money pull them down.
Gotcha.
Or make them unhappy. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So I've had some reality checks lately around I've had a fairly long career where I'm late 40s now. Mm-hmm. I was told I can't say mid 40s anymore, which is kind of
you're mid until you get to 48.
Okay, well then I've got a little bit of time,
yes,
but not much.
You're mid.
I've had a pretty decent career. And I've had a couple reality checks of people going, oh, well, I make this much. And I go, oh, I'm doing okay in the world. I'm not rich. I don't make tons of money, but I've done okay enough for myself where I'm like, we've paid off some bills. Like I don't have a lot of debt anymore. So to me, being my rich self is not worrying about money. Like I want to be able to travel a little bit. I want to be able to travel cheaply. So like I'm gonna still put that lens on it. And go. I'm not going to Bora Bora and sleeping out over the ocean. I will do that someday as a bucket list trip, but like I can't just do that 3 times a year,
right?
Or once a year. Like I can't spend 10 grand on a vacation. That would hurt my soul. So I'm a cheap vacation still, but I want to be able to not worry about money in a way that goes, I think we should be able to go travel here. I think I should be able,
travel.
I broke my tractor last weekend. I'm kind of freaking out about it. I probably need to buy a new tractor and I don't want to. So I'm going to probably buy one. I know, right? Yeah. So, but I'm not going to buy a new tractor. This thing's like 80 grand. Who buys a new tractor?
Nobody. Your dad taught you better than that.
Exactly. So, to me, it's not having to worry about money. It's going, I make enough that I don't worry about paying bills, or I don't worry about wanting to go do something and not being able to, or wanting to buy something and not being able to. Now, do I have my own internal thing that says I probably shouldn't buy that? I don't freaking need it. Like I have some of that go on that goes, oh, you don't really need that. Like I want some new harmonicas. I'm not pulling the trigger on new harmonicas. That's probably only $80, right? Like, but those $80 add up. If you just buy everything for $80, at some point you've bought too many $80 things. So I'm like, I'll hold. So that's kind of where my head is. I'm living in my opinion, a pretty rich life. My kids are going. My kids going to college.
Right.
My other kid's independent. We're trying. We're able to travel a little bit. I don't worry about money. So that to me. That's successful.
So I would pull out probably 3 bullets of that to go.
Okay.
Not having to worry.
Yep.
But I think I don't want to say that's sort of universal, but what I think when you say that, because I have something very similar, is that I don't want to have to think about the price of everything I'm buying before I buy it, and wonder if that's going to hurt my financial self.
Yeah. Does that the thought process of does this small purchase fit into my budget? I don't want that. I don't want that worry.
Okay. And then I heard, because I know too, like you mentioned, college for your daughter, and so being able to afford to help your daughter through college is probably a bullet.
Yep.
And you said it really quick, but I think that's probably a bigger thing than probably just in fleeting, right? Because that's a thing that you do. You work hard to be able to do that.
Yeah.
Right.
She's going
and
to
then the travel.
Yeah. She's going to a school that,
I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I think that's kind of what it was like, instead of a really big picture of going, I don't want to just worry about money, and I want to be able to buy things.
Yeah.
Well, that's kind of nebulous, right? Like, so, if you, like, you're very goal oriented, right? In terms of your career, like what you preach about, like, because you're a coach, you got to set goals and see if you can meet them. So when you bullet point it down, I think I'm just kind of bringing it down to a little bit lower level.
I think that's accurate.
So I bullet pointed a few of mine.
Of course,
what is Andrew's rich life?
What is
like?
your rich life?
Don't rely on debt to make purchases other than a car or a house.
Okay.
I think we talked about that earlier. And if I am going to buy a car or a house, I'm going to try to get it the cheapest possible. And I might get to a point where I can buy a car outright.
Yeah.
But I don't buy new cars. I drive them a long time. My current car is 13 going on 14 years.
Right.
And the car before that I had 10. So like I try to, that's what it's a thing. I just keep cars and try to keep them as nice as possible. But otherwise, and I like sticking it to the man. So I use credit cards. I use one credit card, and everything that's not a bill, I put on the credit card, and I get 1 to 5% cash back.
And then you pay it off every month?
No, well, I pay off my credit card every month, or try to. There are some months where unexpected things comes up, but I got to pull out of savings, but I still pay it off because I don't want to pay interest. But I'm taking their money, their 1 to 5% cash back, and I let that accumulate up until, so right now I'm sitting on whatever amount that is. And when it gets to a certain point where I can pay for like plane tickets to go someplace,
then it's travel money.
It's travel money. And I know a lot of people have miles. Mm-hmm. I've never gotten into the miles game.
I can't get into that either.
I'm always a cash back person. I want the cash, and then I can control where I put it. I might be missing out. I don't know. I've heard a lot of people try to tell me about how the miles can work for you. And I'm like, but I've heard of blackout dates and like things. And I'm like, so I'll just take cash. And then if an emergency really does come up, I can grab that and use it if I want to. But otherwise it's sort of over there for some travel. So I do like credit cards. I'm not anti credit card, but I'm anti, like you said, leaving things on credit cards for a long time. I do not want to be paying interest. Earning power. So my goal for my earning power is to be able to buy the food I want to eat without having to wait for the right price, both groceries and eating out. And I don't know if that sounds simple or not simple, but like when I go to the grocery store, and I don't want this to sound uppity, I just don't want to go to the meat section and know what the per pound is.
Pick out meat based on cost.
To go, oh, it's 10, cow is expensive. So it's, can be anywhere from 8 to 12, 14 or 15. I don't even, again, and pork is a certain amount of money. I don't want to go, it's $1 too much per pound.
Yeah.
So I can't buy something to make brisket, or whatever. So that's, and I want to be able to go to a restaurant and not have to worry about it, like, and just go. And right now I really don't, and I feel, and, unless I'm going to a crazy expensive one, because I've had a couple. I think did I talk on this show about when I took my wife to like that chef's experience one where they make everything for you. Now that bill was the most I'd ever spent at a restaurant, but I knew that one was going to hurt.
Yeah,
I'm not going to that one every weekend. Right. I'm talking about just going.
You paid for an experience.
Yeah,
and it was a big experience.
Yeah, I'm talking about just going out. Yeah, take the family.
Yep.
Sit down for whatever meal.
Yep.
And Red Robin, they're not. I'm not sponsored by them, but like,
you should be.
You should be. Just using it as an example.
Yeah.
Get an appetizer. Get what you need. Here's 20%. Tip, and it's all good. Go. So that's one. And stick with me. I only have two more.
All right.
And they kind of go together.
Okay. You should have just made it one bullet then.
I should have, but it is kind of a secondary thing. Oh. Take longer trips. I want to travel, but you and I have talked a little bit about this. Instead of saving up and then taking the family and for a 4-day somewhere, I want to spend 3 weeks somewhere. And I want to work. I don't even mind working from there. Someplace with a view over an ocean, a view I don't have currently.
Yeah.
I budget in time to work so that I'm not taking 3 weeks of vacation time.
Yeah.
But on the off time and some vacation time, I'm just there longer. I want to soak in a place longer. Yeah. I don't know if that comes with age or what, but I feel like when I've gone on trips, we blitz trips.
Well, and you end up with an itinerary, or you're pissed about the whole trip, right? But yes. you end up going, today we have to cram in these 3 things or these 2 things, or I want to spend even if it's just going, I want to spend a day on the beach. Well, okay, let's look for the weather.
Right.
I want to go somewhere and then get done working, walk down the street and go, ask somebody, where's a good local bar? Right. Where's a good local restaurant to go into, and just go sit in there for a day. Yeah. And just like, this is my night. I have no worries about, I've wasted a day. I don't care. I'm going to waste a couple days, right? Like, I'm just going to walk around and talk to people and like feel what the vibe is in this community and
just explore a little. Yeah.
Do I like it here? Is this a place that I might want to retire someday?
Right.
No? Okay, great. I got the vibe. I kind of get the different, you stay in St. Louis or in Memphis or in Nashville or in, Destin or something. You can't get a feel for it when you're here for 4 days.
Yeah, you're taking in all the touristy stuff that you know is going to be fun, and that's still fun. I mean, I've had fun doing that, but I feel like I want to relax a little, and I think it would improve some of that work too, because if I have a better view, if I'm sitting on a balcony overlooking,
it's just good for your mental health. Yeah. Just go change your view. Like, you and I both do the same thing. We work from home a lot, right? Yeah. And there's days or there's weeks right. where if I'm not careful, I don't leave my house.
Yeah, and for a little while.
I go out in the backyard and I pace like a prisoner. Like, literally, I'm sure the neighbors are like, that dude's weird. But I gotta walk. I go walk in a circle around my backyard. I'm sure like that dude, his wife keeps him as a
sometimes
prisoner.
I just go to the grocery store on a random day and they'll be like, do we need something? I'm like, I just have to leave the property.
I just can't be here.
Right. It's been 5 days since I've left any farther than our driveway to get the mail.
We live on less than a quarter acre. I have not, or like an eighth of an acre. I have not left this eighth of an acre of earth.
Yes.
I gotta go.
And my last sort of, and this goes back to, I think you get what you pay for. And I like just a little bit better than budget is I want to be able to afford the bump to avoid the riffraff. And you know what I mean by that?
So you're saying, like, I want a speed pass at Disney so I don't have to stand in line?
I want slightly better than economy if I fly. If I can I just want to be able to, if I can save other places, but then, or if I go to a place like Disney, but I'm trying to think of other travel too and it's to say the riffraff is horrible.
That is horrible.
I guess.
You're like, you want to talk about hate mail. Holy crap.
You're right. You're like, you're an elitist, man.
Wow.
I am not that, but I do also understand that when, like, if you go to a place and it's like, oh, here's a tour, we have a bus and there's 80 tickets available or however many, and you're like, you're going to fit 80 people on that bus. I just can't. I don't want to be crammed in that thing. I want to pay a little bit extra and get like hey, we do personal tours or a tour that has like 2 or 3 couples on it, and you get a drink along the way.
This is what you view as living a rich life.
Yeah, it's not cramming onto like some. That's just one.
No, I think
I'm
that's
thinking
fair.
in my head.
It's saying I want the upgrade. I want to be able to have the experience,
but not full of like I don't have to fly first class,
Right.
or I don't have to have the penthouse suite somewhere.
You're not having somebody drive you around a limo.
Right.
You're just saying,
Right.
I want an experience that's pleasurable to me and doesn't feel like I had to pick it because it's a thing I could afford.
Right. I don't want the bottom cheapest thing available. And because you know me, I'm not a big fan of a lot of people.
Yeah.
So I feel like when you do the most budget conscious thing, that's where most of there's
That's
like a
where
lot of
stampede
people are
occurs.
going to be.
Yeah.
Right. And you go to those beaches, you've seen them, and you go and I can't sit anywhere. There's nothing wrong with that either. Like I don't want to sound like I'm an elitist because I am not like
And you can go have fun on all those kind of
Yeah.
trips, right? But there is something about getting older going, I don't have to do it that way. If I can afford not to, you want to be able to go, I can afford not to do it that way. We'll have fun if we do it that way. I'll have more fun if I don't have to, because there'll be things that give me anxiety where I go, I have to stand in line for all this and I have to do this. I have to
because
go through
I'm
all
just
this
wasting
rigmarole.
more time of vacation if I'm standing in a bunch of lines or if I'm waiting outside a thing and going.
I get what you're saying, and it does sound like a snooty rich person.
My future rich life, because I know we're coming up on time here, is to soft retire at 50, where I can pick and choose jobs without stress and feeling like I'm under the gun to if something were bad to happen, like layoffs and whatever, I don't want to be under that level of stress that
Where you care.
Where
But, yeah.
in our 30s, that would have been, a huge stress because you're like, I got kids, I got these kids, I got this stuff going on, I got this. So I'm still going to be working for sure, but I want to sort of fully retire, and I still might work, but then it's any work I do is a hobby at 55. So
55 is your date.
that is 10 years from now. So in 5 years, I'm 45 currently. So 5 years from now, I want to soft retire, still working and making money, but being less stressed about it, and then fully retire at 55. And when I retire fully at 55, I want a better view than I have now. I don't know what that looks like. I hope to find it, but
yeah. I mean, my wife and I were talking, and we were like, we got a couple years that we want to spend kind of traveling. And that traveling is with the intent of saying, if we're in a good enough place, where do we want to pick up and kind of sit down somewhere else for a little bit and change the view? Get out of, the middle of the country and go find something, go find an experience. We got married young, and that was, so we gave up a lot of our 20s to raise kids, and we go a lot early 20s to like at 20. And that was the right answer, but we're still young enough to go appreciate some of that. Like you were saying, like 50, 55, you're still in good enough shape to go appreciate, like go do stuff, go be active with your money, because there'd be a time where regardless of whether or not you have money, you can't do stuff. Like you're physically not capable of going to do the kind of travel that even if your mind and your heart wants to go, your body can't make it. You can't do the walking. So you better figure out how to do that crap before your body gets there.
And I just want to tack on to our whole conversation, because we are at a certain point in our lives where this sort of makes sense for us. But we've been in that place where if you're a younger person, if you're listening in your late 20s or in your 30s, and you're like in that early family place where we get it. We've been there where there wasn't a lot of extra money to sometimes go around when you're having to like, oh, I need a new fridge for the house, or I need this. And it's your earning power is less because you're not maybe fully developed in your career, right? So you have less earning potential, but you're still earning money, but you have a new house, you have babies that you're having to fork money over for every single thing that they need. I mean, kids cost a lot of money, and we've had those, right? And we've put a lot of money into those. And
those are not even assets. They're not going to pay off later.
They are high interest credit cards.
We were on government assistance when we first had our kids at 20. Like we were struggling. We were on the, really struggle bus for a long time, and you got to work your way out of it. And that took a long time to work, like where I felt like I'm not living paycheck to paycheck anymore. Like that's a painful place to be.
But that, like when we're talking about our quote unquote rich life, and then, younger people might have a different type of rich life, or even just people different than us, obviously,
just
right?
Happiness to you can also still be living paycheck to paycheck. for the most part. Like you can be happy and have kids and
Right.
do all that stuff. You can be happy with, 60,000 a year. You can be happy with 100,000 a year. You can be unhappy with 500,000 a year. Just for
sure.
the record. So
Yes.
I've seen people chasing happiness and they're not going to catch it.
Right.
I don't care how much money you make. You're not going to do it. I've watched you run for years trying to chase
Yeah.
it.
Some of the richest people I think you and I have met have had sort of the most interpersonal problems.
Yeah.
Personal and interpersonal.
yeah.
But and it's interesting. It's like the theory here is like you make the goals and then you kind of figure out, because like in that show, he would say how to figure out how to increase your earning power. If maybe your goal is not living paycheck to paycheck, then how do we make that goal? Don't be spending money on things that don't get you towards that goal necessarily. Don't necessarily stop buying the coffees, but like don't spend it elsewhere too. If you have like something else that's sucking money out, like high interest credit card that you're just sitting there paying on, that money could be, if you figured out how to pay that off, then you could be using that money for something else. So.
Trade-offs. Have honest conversations about trade-offs. Right. If you spend it here, you can't spend it here.
And money isn't a bad word and shouldn't be feared. And I think that's what, I think a lot of people sort of can get afraid of money. So certain conversations I have, it's like sometimes they don't want to necessarily talk about it. Sometimes it's sort of faux pas to be like, oh, I don't really want to talk about it. Or unless usually everybody wants to tell you what a great deal they got on something.
Right.
Right. Look at these shoes. I got these for like $25. And I'm like,
we should do a whole podcast on all the fails we've had over the years. Because I think that's the part that generates the stigma of how bad money is that people go, well, I don't want to be the one who fails with it. Oh, I've got if I failed with some money.
For sure.
Like bad. Right. So
it goes to our overall point, I think, of our life is if you learn best from your mistakes.
Yeah.
And like we've made plenty of mistakes along the way. I know I have.
I made them this year with money, literally this year. I probably this week with money. But for sure this year. So yeah, that might be fun someday. Just do fails.
We got plenty of them. I got electrocuted. That was a fail of mine.
Yeah, this is good.
But we picked that up with this beer because it was definitely a good for and balanced my life out with the electricity.
Now you're back in balance. Nice.
All right.
Awesome.
All right. Well, I mean, I think we've run the gamut on this, so cool. We'll shut this one down. And if you have any feedback, negative or positive,
we love it.
Again, we like negative isn't necessarily bad. It gives us good feedback and we learn from it.
I honestly just like to know where the heads are of our listeners. Tell me where you're at. If you hate everything we say, but you listen, I'm good with that too. Just tell me what you hate because I want to understand. Just give me feedback. We need feedback. Right?
Yeah.
Listen, give us some thoughts. Put a comment in and go, I hated this. I liked that. Or you're an uneducated boob who doesn't know what the hell's going on. I'm good with that too.
Right.
But
Andrew, you're a snob that wants to pay your way around the riffraff is completely unattached to the world today that we live in, that whatever.
Yeah,
I mean, I fully expect that somebody would think that the way, but hopefully it didn't come across that way.
The unclean masses are coming for you. All right. We good?
Thanks you.
Thanks you.
If we don't end the show, we will exceed our daily allotted storage space for all the bits and bytes. So you see, it's not you, it's us. We must turn off the feed.